Welcome to the channel. This is Reliable Rudy. Let me make sure everything sounds good. Gotta get the link. Before we get into any market analysis, you guys know I'm not a licensed financial advisor. Everything in this video is merely my opinion. I believe the stock market in the short run is just a big voting machine. In the long run, I think it's a weighing machine. But as of today, I have a vote. Person next to me has a vote. Person next to him has a vote as well. So just sharing my opinion with some of the market analysis, and if you guys are following it, uh, I'll leave that up to you guys to decide. So going into, we're just going to talk about the NQ. Nothing on my chart for the NQ has changed, but one of the big things that I've talked about multiple times is the relative strength on the NQ. Now, when you get this positive break on relative strength, you have a nice green volume that comes into the market. You have a couple pullback days, and when you take out this high, you get your positive strength break. You retest the highs, and we've pretty much been on this uptrend since. Uh, Now, this was a descending channel. I was playing around with a little short against relative strength, and you can see betting against relative strength for me, as I am still holding that position into the SQ. With the realization that it's probably going to keep going against me, but I'm okay with that. And I did post a sticky note based off of GDP to stock market ratio. With that, uh, I could go over that a little bit more. Maybe I can do a live stream over the weekend and explain that a little bit. But I'm okay holding a Nasdaq short. I think there is going to be opportunities where the long is going to be a lot better. But if you're just looking for, like when I say the stock market's a voting machine in the short run, if you're looking for something that's going to go up, I bet for relative strength. I do not try to bet against relative strength, and this is the reason why. We have not gone negative on relative strength, and the NQ has been a gold mine all year. From the relative strength break, the NQ index itself is up almost 18%. That is a massive move. If you can compound 18% every single year for the rest of your life, you are going to be a very wealthy person. Um, so yes, this has been a very nice move, and I would expect continuation. Now, I do have a little bit of a target for this next leg up. We are breaking highs. This was a flat top break that we broke it, we retested it, and even yesterday, all we did was we gap up, we retrace, refill that gap on the money, which was our flat top, and now we've been pretty bullish on the NQ for a continuation move. Now we do have a couple gaps that need to get filled. How is the market going to react up here? Now, when this uptrend breaks, it's going to be really interesting to see how the market reacts and where we're sitting on relative strength. But that is going to be a key watch for me. But if you had a gun to my head and said, which way do you think the market is going to continue to go? Relative strength of plus 115, breaking over new highs, I would expect continuation to the upside. So in that scenario, I would say that there is going to be long opportunities in the market, even though the market is a bit extended on the year. Yes, finding longs in periods where the Nasdaq from the lows, which is near the start of the year, is up 25%. It can be difficult. I understand that. Uh, but patience, sometimes patience can be your best asset in that as well. So let me pull up my Twitter. We did have some sticky notes for the day, and we have some sticky notes that we could go back over to from the previous days. I wasn't able to live stream the last couple days, so I do apologize about that. But we're back on track today. So let's go over to the first sticky note for today. Uh, But quickly before we did that, I did post a nice sports bet. This is the first one that I've actually posted that was a hit. Cubs covered. You know, when I was putting this bet in, I was very tempted to do Cubs 4.5, and that payout would have been six something. But we stayed with the safe route. I really liked the matchup, and I simply said, you know, Justin Steele has been lights out on the year, and actually it was one of his worst outings on the year, as he actually broke his streak for of 14 consecutive games with two or less earned runs given up, and he gave up three. So even with that, the Cubs were able to exceed that 3.5. Now, first sticky note I posted was JD earnings, minimal revenue gain, but net income or net margins and gross margins both had a nice increase. I wasn't able to find the shares outstanding. I wanted to see if they were putting any of that cash flow back into buying back some shares. Now, JD in particular isn't the most spectacular uh, type of margin type play. They don't have the greatest margins, uh, but the minimal revenue growth I would say is was one of the main red flags that I've seen from the earnings, simply because they've consistently been putting up 20%, and for them to only do 2%, you know, I was a little curious how the market was going to react to that. But clear operating efficiency increase was definitely noticeable in their earnings, and I seen a few good other things in their earnings report that I didn't put on the sticky note. But let's go take a look. Now, JD catching a nice bid. Now, uh, one thing that I did have on was, you know, this was a recent flat top. Now, when before we got bullish in 2020, we did retest this area in these low 30s, and you could see the buying demand is here. Now, I do have a clear descending channel marked on this name. But when we were below this downtrend or this descending channel, this was the area where there was a lot of buying demand. You can see the nice bit of volume increase before we went back to retest up to these highs. Now, if just from taking this was a 95% move. Pretty significant move if you ask me. Now looking more so at the earnings numbers, you can see right here, they had a nice beat on EPS. Now, analysts analysts are wrong all the time. A lot of times I don't even take into consideration what analysts are projecting for stuff. Uh, but I was okay with all these. I actually uh, wanted to see a little bit more revenue than what they put. But I guess it was in line with what analysts thought. More on the technical level. When I seen the open price gap up over top of this high, I was pretty excited for what this was going to have, because it did have a nice volume increase going into the day. But you can see leading up into the earnings, we get the gap up. Now we fill that gap on the money, get a little bit of trading underneath this. But if I switch it to a 15-minute chart, you're going to see a nice channel in a sense right in here. Now also where we gap up to the top end of that channel. So I was pretty excited to see that at the open, and you can see the demand. Now when we retrace back down, you can see one, the level holds. Two, all we did simply was retest the top end of this channel that we have right here. And three, you know, catching a nice bid. And if we're looking more in particular, uh, we set a higher low on this candle, and solid green volume has come into this since then. So if I'm looking for continuation, I want to see it get over 38, which also meets in with some resistance over here. And I think that this can make a run up for the 40 level again, which this was actually an area that I was kind of interested in, because at the time I had a nice uptrend and I wanted to, you know, average into the position a little bit. I felt like this little setup right here when we gapped up, it attempted to come fill this gap. Actually, it was very close. I actually did attempt to buy this gap right here. And, you know, that was bad shares bought for me if you look at it from a short term. Now, in the long run, I think that this is a fairly priced company, in my opinion, of course. But I was pretty excited to see the price action with it today. And obviously, buying shares down here would have been nice, but you know, I didn't execute into any of that simply because relative strength was not there. Now, who knows? Relative strength is only at negative 43 right now. Maybe there's a buying opportunity in this if this retraces back in to the top end. Call this a neckline if you wanted to, but maybe even to the gap fill at 35. I'm definitely going to be interested in this name, and it will be on my radar. So that was JD earnings. The second one was FVRR earnings. Now, the revenue was up, I think it was 4%. Uh, but, I really wasn't the most impressed with their earnings simply because uh, still net income wise, they still lost $4.2 million. Now they did increase the cash on hand. I did see that on the balance sheet that they increased their cash on hand by about 9%, but they still had a little bit of share dilution, which gave them the diluted EPS was still positive. But one of the big factors that is crucial to look at when you're looking at earnings reports is the gross margin. Well, this is a newer company. A lot of times you'd want to look at net margins, but they lost 4.2 million. But the gross margins was still very high, so a lot of reinvestment back into their business model. But 180 basis points on gross margins on earnings reports, you don't see that all the time. So I thought they were all right earnings. It wasn't anything to just get overly excited about. And I did have this on watch early in the day. Simply at this gap fill. I was very interested around this gap and also kind of at this previous high right here. So if we go into a 15-minute chart and take a look at these two areas, well, that previous high, you can see it wicks into it off the beginning. But the following candle, this is not the type of setup that I would say, okay, yeah, this looks really good. One, this is a bearish candle followed with a red engulfing candle through the low. A lot of times if I'm looking for that pullback into this area, I would have liked to see some sort of descending channel this way, kind of down to that area, where more so in that closer to midday, we're getting that test of that area. And maybe it shows you a move to the upside, and then it respects some sort of channel in a sense. But obviously, you see we got the red engulfing down, we retrace. The shorters right here, this is a telling candle. uh, One, you haven't filled that gap yet, and two, you can see the shorts or sellers, either one, kind of come in into the middle of this candle when it starts leaving that wick right there. Now, obviously, you get the follow through of red engulfing to the downside, and now it's kind of presenting a little bit of area where this could be looked at as a neckline right here. And then you retrace, and now are we going to retest that area and catch some support? But if we go back over to the daily on this name, you can see, is it an interesting area to take a long position with relative strength down here at negative 58? In my opinion, I don't think that it is. So I kind of looked away from this name early in the day as I thought there was other opportunities in the market. But all in all, I looked at the earnings report and it wasn't terrible. RBLX potential trade closer to that positive strength, three green candles of increasing green volume. 38 to 37.50 is the support to hold. Above that, I'm looking for continuation on this name. So let's go take a look at RBLX, and this was a sticky note from earlier in the day. I actually had a little bit of a what's the word? A mistake on this name yesterday as it was holding that level. This was the level that I was interested in. Now I actually didn't even look at the earnings report for this name. But I know I could noticeably see the volume yesterday as it was holding that 37, holding that 37.50. Now, in the middle of this green candle is when we took the trade, and we actually averaged up a little bit into it. And ultimately, I just ended up selling a little bit too much of the position, and I actually sold a little bit more as we were getting ready to crack that 39, even though it was retesting pretty much the highs. But I did hold a piece into the close, and you get the gap up. Now, this is what I was kind of talking about with FVRR, where you get the gap up, and you see how this actually shows you a little bit of a move to the upside instead of going straight down to that gap. See, now it's trying to hold this previous high. Uh, so this is a more typical setup that I would like to maybe get a reload back into the size that I had originally. But ultimately, relative strength just isn't quite there yet. And I think there's going to be opportunity maybe to get into this again around that 38 to 37 support that I talk about on the sticky note. You can see it right here, 38 to 37 and a half is the support. That is where I'm going to be a little bit more interested in this name, and potentially the gap up, which is what I was marking right there. So I want to see buying pressure come into this name still, but you can see relative strength, negative 17. This is where I think the bigger players are at, and you can see here's your start of the gap fill. This is what we wicked into early in the day. So if it can fight through some of the selling and the shorting in this area, I think that this can potentially get an extension up to this 45.50, 45 half gap, and maybe even try for a breakout, probably this 48 level. But you can see a little bit of a disconnect from the uptrend. So is this going to be some sort of descending channel, sort of like this, to the downside? So that's also why you got a little bit of selling and shorting probably taking place at the start of that gap fill. So it's one to keep on watch. Maybe that 37 support doesn't hold up and we end up just stopping out of the rest of it. But then how does it act down here at this gap? So we have a 35, about a 35 flat gap. You know, who knows? Maybe we trade down here, we set a higher low of some sort, and we're able to break this downtrend that we have set. So uh, that is going to be one that I'm keeping on watch for a potential trade as well. So yes, that was RBLX. So let's go take a look at the next one. Disney earnings. Oh man, this could be. Now I said I was going to talk specifics on live stream, but all, all in all, the chart setup is bearish. I seen it was going to get the gap down. Long term, in my opinion, I should state that clearly. I think that you'll be fine with this name in the long run. If you can't stomach the loss, you know, I openly said just sell it. If you can't stomach it, just sell it. So we can go take a look at Disney, and you're going to see why I say it's a nice bearish chart setup. Well, one, you gap down below your uptrend. Two, your open price comes right in at a gap fill, and there's no buying off of either of these gaps. So if I was looking at buying against that relative strength, I would have really liked to see some buying pressure come in those mid 90s for a potential retrace back into these lows, but there wasn't any of that earlier today. Now, it is catching a little bit of a bid at this support level down here, but ultimately I think that this is probably going to retrace down. This gap was not able to get filled down here at 89, and this gap right over here at 86.90, give or take. I think this is more where you're going to see a little bit of that gap fill buying. Now, if we have to go further to the left of the chart, you know, we can easily do that, where this is the gap fill I want to see continue the hold support, where we did have some good ads into this. You know, this was the original entry. I bought this against strength off of one of these gaps, and I was already telling myself, hey, this could easily have further downside risk into the upper 70s. As you can see, previous high, you wick into that. So this was identified as a potential buying window right there. Who knows, maybe Disney can trade down to that range, but all in all, some positives from their earnings report is that margin wise, I want to see Disney get back to the 2018, the 2014 margins that they had. Two, I thought that they are getting a step closer to those margins. They're not quite there yet, obviously. But three, I thought they had a decent increase in cash flow. If they can continue putting up cash flow like that quarter after quarter, you know, I think it'll be able to work out some of the kinks on this name. Uh, Obviously, a lot of people are hating on the subscriber decrease. Uh, but when I remember looking at Disney back in like Q2 and Q3 of 2022, more of their capex was going to park and rec, and that was a lot of the bright spots that they had in their earnings report was from the park and rec. But now we're seeing a little bit of a shift go to the media segment, which that was a lot of the negative that they had. So they're using some more of that capex towards that media section, which is, you know, if it does pan out for them, that could be the right play for them. They've management-wise, last year I questioned them going into the park and rec, And that was a lot of the bright spot of their earnings. So it's going to be interesting to see how putting more of that capex in the media is going to pan out for them later into the year. So I'll look forward to their next earnings report. I just want to see more cash flow. You can see, EPS still positive, net profit they're getting back on track. Now if they can continue compounding that EPS and that revenue growth, that is what I want to see. So yes, that was the Disney earnings. I hope I'm not too confusing there. Lumen, potential trade, testing the flat top, 250, over 250 looks good. Strength is getting close. I state it right here, it's getting close. Might need a couple days. Next week, I would say this one is going to be on watch for me. So let's go take a look at Lumen. Now you can see we never got over that 250. But I do on a 15-minute chart see a nice uptrend right here, and that relative strength at negative 43, we're getting close. But this 240 is also pretty clear resistance, which is why I want to see over that 250. 250. It's a whole quarter number. Uh, but these previous lows, this 240, 240, 240, 240. Now we're rejecting it. 240, 240, 240, 240. Now we got to a high of 243. So this one is going to be on watch, and if we look at a 15-minute chart, you can see the uptrend that I'm kind of talking about right here, where you have one, you retrace down, you have the gap fill buyers. Now you set another higher low off of this uptrend, and then yesterday had direct correlation with the wick with some decent volume following that wick off of that trend line. Now if it trades back down here, I wanted to see it trade sideways and hold this low and then meet up with that uptrend. And if that starts giving a curl, that's where this 245 to 250 could be coming in play, where this was the lone bit that we traded above it, and that was the earnings date. So it's very close, but just not there yet today, in my opinion. Now, if you want to be aggressive and say, hey, this trend line's gotten good action, more power to you. Me, I don't mind buying at a higher price if I'm going to sell it higher. Uh, there's nothing wrong with buying high and selling higher. A lot of people use the saying, buy low, sell high. It's just more preference to the trader. That's why everyone can be their own trader. There's no perfect way to invest. Everyone has their own investing strategies. That's the way I look at that. So that was Lumen. Geo. Now this was one that I played a little bit with today, and I'm actually going to be interested to see what this looks like coming back, and I'm very happy with that. Very happy with that. So let's go take a look at what we said on the sticky note first. So we said Geo, potential trade. Nice bull flag setup. Has three nice green candles. Yesterday was a pullback day. Might need the retest 8 to 825 first. Strength plus 31. So when I'm looking at something that has strength of plus 131, that is very enticing to me, especially if it's a fresh positive break. So let's go take a look at the daily on this. Now let's just clear out my chart setup right here. Now when I say a fresh positive break, I mean it just went from negative, and more in particular, the oversold area. Because you see these nice three red engulfing or red volume candles right here. You see you have a little bit of buying pressure, a little bit of buying pressure, but in my opinion, there is shorters that are looking for a break of this low. Now when you get this gap up continuation, this is where you see short covering and also buyers coming in as you break this neckline. So one, you broke a crucial level. I look at this as a crucial level because we go a little bit left. You can see we have the gap fill right here. So you fill the gap, and anybody who said, hey, I still think that we can get a breakdown of this level and is looking to short this gap, you can see the volume increase where the shorts are covering their positions. That's my opinion, of course. I don't know if they're actually covering their positions or not. But then you look a little bit further to the left of the chart, and you can see we put in this double top, where you put a top and then a little bit lower of a high, followed with the sell-off. That is what I'm looking for. Now you can see this third candle, we actually break through that level as well. And that is the third volume increase right there. Now when I say yesterday was a pullback candle, if we just put a horizontal line at this level right here. Now, when I'm looking at a pullback, I want to see it pull back to a level. So I would say that this previous high right here, which if we just mark it, that comes in at 828. So that is the start of how I say, you know what, might need to pull back. I say 825. So I just gave it a little extra room down from that 825, 828 down to 825. Now, if it wanted to pull back into 8, ultimately I would be referring to this neckline, so down to 770 may all be, and maybe even this gap fill. But you can see we have our levels right here that are rolling in, and that's sitting at 8 flat and 770. So if this does want to pull back, that is more than reasonable. I'm very interested 8 to 825. Now let's go talk about the entries because this can be very crucial. So let's clear our chart one more time. So one one thing that I see that I had marked on my chart, which was marked when I first came, was you have this uptrend. Now this is the opening candle of the day. You can see this is Wednesday's close. So if you were just looking at this chart from Wednesday, you said, okay, it's setting to close right at the uptrend. Are we going to get a gap down below this? And that's where I would say, okay, let's see a retrace down into 825, maybe even 8 flat. But this first candle of the day, you can see we wick below it and the buyers come in to hold that uptrend. Now we wick into this level. Now we set a higher confirmed low right off that uptrend. I looked at this as a neckline break. So when this was able to claim 875, that is when we had our first order, and we actually averaged a little bit more in on this pullback of this previous high. When it showed me a close of this candle and then pulled back, wicked into the level, and then pulled back into that level again, this is where we averaged up on the position. Now with any uptrend, you see this is a nice ascending line. There can also be a potential channel. So if we were to set a channel on this name, that is a nice parallel channel. Now for me, because I wasn't able to buy that uptrend right off that uptrend, the first thing that I looked at was I could have a late entry right here, and this could just reject the uptrend. So of course, yes, if I got an entry in right here and right here, I simply just trimmed a piece of the position. Trim, 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 right up into this uptrend. Now this uptrend could be set more so like that. You can see this is the level we wicked, and I actually was on the bid, or the ask, for 905. Now I wasn't able to get my fill on 905, but when we retrace back into my original entry, this is when we reloaded the position, and I was actually on the bid for more shares off of this neckline at 875. Now obviously you can see I wasn't able to get that pullback, but let's say it pulled back there, I get filled, I would have been all for adding more shares in with this uptrend at these previous wicks right here. I would have been all for it. So yeah, as you can see, uh, there was also a descending channel. This is what I was banking on for a further continued pullback right here, as you had a nice parallel channel to the downside. And this was my catalyst for, okay, we're going to get that pullback and we're going to retrace down into these levels where I can up my position a little bit. But when you break this downtrend, you can see we break with a nice green engulfing candle, a nice volume increase, and now we're even getting continuation follow through from that line. So all in all, I think now one other thing for some potential out. So let's just clear the chart. We can keep this channel. We can keep this channel up right here because I think it's been respectable channel, of course. Now, when I see three nice green or red engulfing candles to the downside like this, with increasing volume, this is the pullback day. This is Wednesday. This is the opening candle Wednesday, and we trade sideways, and we set a close down here. If we go back to the daily, you can see this is that pullback candle. Now, if I was looking for some potential outs on this name, I would just simply take this move. Yeah, three nice red candles to the downside, which is the start of your pullback day. So if I was looking at this as a retracement, there's your retracement. Now I'm simply just going to mark these outs right here. One, 2, 3, 4. Now let's get rid of that retracement. I will be respecting all of these levels for trims. That does not mean that it is going to be perfect exits. I just look at it as you're respecting the levels. So, from my entry, where I took this nice green engulfing candle, if we were to take this, my first out is a nice 4% move. My second out, 9%. My next out, 14%. My next out, 16%. Now, that's just my strategy, of course. But if we look at all of these red lines, so I'm going to put my cursor on all these red lines, and you can look over to the left of the chart. Resistance, 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 resistance. All four of those outs represent some sort of resistance over here on the left of the chart. Now you could say, where is the resistance on this one? I don't see any resistance over here. This actually looks like support. Well, if you zoom in a little bit, I was able to see it because I've already looked at it multiple times. You can see we have this gap fill right here around this 950. Now let's go look back to the left. There is your resistance level on that second extension. So I'm looking for a wick through 950, and who knows, maybe it gets hard rejected. Now if I was looking for further outs past this level, I would then just mark my lows. So this was support, 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 support. You can see it act as support over here multiple times. And then I also see that you have another previous low, and then you also have a gap fill right there. So if I was looking at these as all potential outs for my entry down here, we can go through every single one of them. Let's just use our tool, and we'll go from current price even. My first out, 2.5%. Next outs, 6.5 to 7%. Next out, 11.5%. Next out, 14.5%. Next out, 24%. And my next outs, where I'm looking to really cut down on the position a little bit, is 30%. I will take 30% on a trade any day of the week. Now, a lot of people have pushback on taking profit. You know, one of the sayings that I always go to is nobody ever went broke taking profit. You find me the guy that went broke taking profit. And, when you find me and show me the evidence of that, I will tip my hat to you because, in my opinion, nobody has ever went broke taking profit. The second thing is, oh, the taxes. You're going to have to pay taxes on that. My argument to that is, as long as I have profits to pay taxes with. Oh, and it looks like I did just have an alert on something just cross. Let's go take a look at that. I set this alert very early in the day, and it looks like, oh wow, look at this guy. Should we take this trade live on the stream? Cross through. Now I looked at this as a nice flat top. I seen it was running early in the day, and we're wicking through it right now. I could go over and take a look at this. This is a very interesting level that's trying to break through. It's held this uptrend. Support, 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 support. Now I could even adjust this a little bit, but had a nice pullback, started filling this gap, and now we're getting a nice green engulfing candle. We could look at potentially taking a trade on this if we wanted to. Uh, but that is kind of what I'm looking at when I'm setting a day trade. Sometimes I'll just set an alert on something. Now you can see we're wicking into that right now, but this is a nice green candle. Not the most volume increase, but if I go over to a 5-minute chart, sometimes if I don't have three nice green candles on a 15-minute chart, I want to find the chart that shows me three green engulfing candles. So you can look over here. On this candle we have four, which is fine. So this is the first red candle from this wick top. Now I'm looking for one, you have an intraday gap. I want to see buying come in there. Now you can see we're wicking towards that already. Two, I'm looking for three red candles of decreasing volume. So on this move to the upside, you can see we have 1, 2, 3 nice green candles with increasing volume. Now even though it increases more on this candle, I see this as this was the average volume before. Now we're getting increased green volume. So if this wants to be a red candle, now who knows, this is why I don't like using a 5-minute chart sometimes, is because A lot of times you're going to get that volume increase, but the bigger picture is on that 15-minute chart. So this candle has quite a bit of time left on this 15-minute. This could still end up being a green candle, and this pole might not be done forming yet. Now you can see we already have one, two. Now this will be the third increased volume candle. Now if it can turn green, then I'm looking for my pullback areas into these previous wick areas, which is where we're at right now. So maybe this is one just to keep on watch, and it is late in the day. So um, you can see we're getting the buyers coming in off that area. So there's a lot of time left on this candle. We'll come back to this here in a little bit. But yeah, that was interesting that that just wicked through that. Yeah, kind of broke down my geo breakdown. But you can see this is more of a slow mover, and I'm okay holding this one into the close simply because uh, that green candle, if we just close out this, a nice green engulfing candle, if it can close like this, I'm all about holding this. As one, I'm very interested in an extension up to this 950, and I think that we're going to get that. So, yeah, so that was Geo. That one was one that I put on watch for today. Next one, Kazam, and this is the last one. And then I'll probably end the stream unless there is anybody uh oh, looks like we have Hal in here talking. My bad, Hal. I didn't even notice that you were in here. Let me go. Yeah, so we'll go talk about Kazam because that was a sticky note that we added. Kazam potential trade. It's a fresh positive break, strength plus 12. Support at 3 is held 10 times. Someone likes this name at 10 at 3 clearly. For it to hold that 3 support 10 times, someone clearly likes the name at 3. Now, can it get a move higher? So let's go take a look at Kazam real quick, and then we'll see if Hal has anything that he wants to add. So let's go take a look at Kazam. And you can see I do have a descending wedge right here. Is this an accurately set downtrend? I don't know. Excuse me. But here is your positive break. Relative strength at 24. Now the one thing that I'm focused on is it going to be able to break this downtrend? Now when I see large moves like this to the downside, a lot of times I'll just use a fib tool. Just mark out some levels. Now you can see we respect our first retracement, we respect our second one, we respect our third, we respect our fourth, and now the 702. Now this one is the deadly one. The 702 is deadly. Now that last retracement can be deadly too, but a lot of times I see a lot of big orders come in off of that 702. Now if you look at this green candle that taps that 702, that is a nice large candle right there. The other one is our other big volume candle, rejecting that 702. So I would be careful taking that trade for continuation. Uh, and also with the downtrend. So what I'm looking for with Kazam is, one, I want to take a look at the volume on the day. So you can see this is the first green move. This looks like a bull flag continuation, and still kind of light on volume, which I'd want to see a little bit more volume increase. But if it can flirt with over top of these highs right here, call it 388, probably push that up to 4, then I'm going to be interested in this name. Now, I might try to get a pullback, but who knows? Maybe this needs a pullback to 325 beforehand, 333, 334, which, I might be interested, but here is that support level that I was talking about at this 3 flat. We're just going to put it right at 3 flat. Build support, wicks into it, wicks into it, wicks into it multiple times. You can see the support there at that 3 level, where if we were to use our move, this one gave you a huge pop. This one gave you a huge pop. This one gave you a nice 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 pop. this one also gave you a nice pop. So that is why I have that on radar. If that 3 support wants to keep holding, it hasn't failed yet. And also, when you are buying something around that support level, you have a clear out. So if you were to play around with that 3 support, you could easily give it 25 cents to the downside, and you'll know right away if it's going to work for you. So, so COSM, yes, that is going to be on watch if it ever comes back into that 3, or maybe we'll talk about it at 4. So yeah, that is what we have on radar. That was the sticky notes for the day. I see we had a couple, someone come in and like and retweet a few times, and we did have some good traction, around that 15 to 30 views. So I do appreciate that as well. And I hope you got good value out of it, and I hope you got good value out of this live stream as well. Uh, with that being said, I am gonna wrap it up with the. It looks like Hal has something. POLA is the sore spot for me today. Had 5,000 shares at 137. It would not go for me now and the day through 150. So let's go take a look at Polo real quick. Let me keep an eye on that min trade. Was it min? Yeah, it looks like it's still rejecting that level. And yeah, just not the quite setup that I'd want to see. Really light in volume right here. You get the volume increase, but this is a red volume, so this doesn't look like it's going to be a trade that I'm interested back half of the day. I set that alert over here. I don't know when, sometime over here. But if you're still here, Hal, I actually was on the bid at 408 right here. Right here. I was on the bid 408. Believe it or not, I'll leave that up to you to decide. But I did have some decent size on the trade. I originally had the order in off 4 flat. It showed me it wanted the gap up. And run, I put the order in at 4 flat. And when it showed me this run, I'm like, I don't know if I want to see this a full red engulfing to the downside. So I upped it. I seen on the bid, somebody was on the bid for 4 lots at 407. So I jumped in front of him at 408. I never got the fill. And this is what transpired the rest of the day. It ran all the ways up to that level. So I was pretty pissed off at this one yesterday. But, that's part of trading. Uh, Sometimes shit happens. And what do you do? The only thing that you can do is learn from it and move forward. Polar power, we can take a look at this. So you were in at 37s. So I'm imagining you got in maybe somewhere like right here when it popped up a little bit. Uh, yeah, this one's one where I'd want to see a little bit more information. But you can see where you were interested in it was sort of this previous high wick. You got a nice positive break on strength, earnings coming up. I'd want to see this kind of just build a U shape, and yeah, I can throw this one on radar. And Minim is halted to the downside. That's funny. Yeah, like I said, the setup on the 15 minute just didn't show me anything worth a damn. If it would have had continuation through that 7, I think this could have caught a little bit more of a bid, but clearly you can see that was not the case. Yeah, this is not the most bright setup as the volume is really weak on that move up to the upside. So, yeah, I'm not surprised that this is like there's not really any longs that really got in here. This is more of I'd say reloads from anybody that was able to take this short over here and really print it to the downside. You can see nice red candles to the downside right here. I would say probably just some reloads and off of that. But Pola, I just don't. I'm not a fan of the big gap up. It does give you the retrace to these previous highs right here. But I'd be interested in this probably next week, not even today. JagX volume and people did you see JagX? I didn't see JagX. I was a little occupied on some other stuff. So now this is something that I'd be a little bit more interested in right here. You got this nice green move right here. You could have some sort of uptrend brewing, but I don't like this red engulfing with the increasing red volume to the downside. It's the only thing I'd say. But when I see multiple green candles like this, I'd want to go to my hour chart. And you can see that hour candle just isn't enticing to me right there. Uh, but if this gap right here, you can see somebody's trying to hold it up from filling this gap to the downside. You could also say this previous high. Uh, but more so with this uptrend, I would say, it is a decent ascending, decent. I don't see any clear like channels to the upside. Uh, Whereas this was one of the trades I was looking at today. Uh, I still haven't taken a trade. I was waiting for a break at 710 for a potential refill of this gap right here, but just never gave me anything. You can see I had a nice clear descending channel. Uh, right here, I was watching it. I thought that this might have been able to give me a move to the upside. I was expecting this gap to get filled. But I looked away from it when I seen this was a nice red engulfing candle to the downside, but it actually respected this line that I had drawn in right here. Uh, this could be one that could make a move, and I'll show you why. This is SFWL. I put this one on watch the other day. If I take this top wick to the bottom of the move right here, to the bottom of the move, you can see it kind of wicked up to that full extension area. Now, I thought that there was a possible chance that, it could build a U shape and give you another move up to that area up there, which is why I put it on radar. You said, yeah, the problem was that I was up 368 on the pop up on Polo and didn't take anything. Yeah, nobody ever went broke taking profit. That's one thing I'd say about that. You find me the person that's gone broke taking profit, and I'll tip my hat to you. When it gives you those moves, so it's never bad to pay yourself out. And that was like, I mean, Geo was my example of that today. This was a new entry for me today. It was a brand new entry and one that I'm bullish on. And I got the entry off of this neckline break and actually added some more to it. Trim, trim, trim. All I did was respect the levels where you have an uptrend right here. Now I didn't get the entry down here. I waited for a little bit more confirmation, but I simply just respected the top end of the channel. And as we're talking right here, it looks like this is maybe gonna give a retest or break of that 9. You got a nice U-shaped building right here. And you could also say, you probably have some sort of uptrend like that is in the works as well, where, I don't think there's any clear ascending channel with that. So I don't know how much that's going to respect it, but uh, yeah, nobody ever went broke taking profit. There's nothing wrong with that, as long as you learn something from it, is what I'll say about that. But it is 2:50. I gotta go run the dog, and yeah. I'll be in touch with you maybe tomorrow, and hopefully Donnell's doing good as well. So, yeah, I'll leave it at that. Thanks for tuning in, and we will catch you on the. You said something real quick. You said, I'm not trading these sub $2 stocks anymore. They bleed me dry everything because I expect the level to bounce. Red Day, $45 loss for me. That's honestly not that bad as long as you took something positive from it. Let me see if there is. A lot of times with those under $2 stocks, sometimes having a higher float is actually a positive thing because it can't just whadoonk to the downside on you. Uh, but my a lot of times they don't get the volume either though. Let me see if I can find something that. Let's see something with a little bit more volume. So that's XRP. Not the most volume. This has no volume. It's not really worth it either. Like OST, this was one that I Didn't ever pull the trigger on, but I had it on watch because I said to myself, you know, it has a clear ascending channel. Find those on those under $2 stocks. Find those ones that have a clear channel that you can draw out instead of the one that gaps up big, uh, and then gives you that retrace to the downside. I know you like buying uh, as low as you possibly can. True, but the chop also kills me when they're higher float. Yeah, I can understand that, and it's partially why I probably don't trade them that much either. But you know, as long as you learn something from it, how I would say just that when you can really get your emotions played by market movers. Yep, yep. And a lot of times, I like being that person that's in early. I want to be early. I want to identify the level and get the early entry. That way, when it catches that first little pop, you can pay yourself out. If it pulls back into that area, you're a little bit more comfortable holding it. So you said it was POLA. So right here, this is really early to the party, and who knows? Maybe something like this actually gives you the move. Maybe not even tomorrow. Maybe it gives you the move next week, where it has to work out some of the, like right here. This was a lot of red volume that came in. So when I like the same way to the upside, when I get a lot of green candles coming, I try to find 3 red candles. So let's switch to a 30-minute chart. You can see red. Now let's switch to that hour chart. You can see you got 3 red candles right here. You're looking for 1, 2, 3. Now this one actually does give you the gap down. If I'm thinking of it from an opposite perspective, this one gives you the gap down, where this could actually just be a bear flag that's panning out, and you need to work down to these levels, which is your previous highs, before it can actually make a move. So just because, it faked you out and it wanted to run, who knows, maybe in the bigger picture, this actually wants to sort of build this upside down U shape, which is what I'd be looking for the upside, a U shape build. But this actually could pan out, and who knows, maybe it's a good thing that you sold it, even though you could have made money on it. But yeah, this MN did reopen up. Yeah, it's still trading on this above this uptrend, so I would say this one's still probably on watch for me. Even going in tomorrow, even though it halted to the downside, in my eyes, you still have this gap fill, you still have the uptrend. This trade might not be over. It doesn't have very much. I guess 17 million in volume's not terrible, but this is definitely the clear resistance that it needs to break over for it to catch any steam, in my opinion. Exactly. I went to buy the soles of the shoes. 137 had so many huge orders coming in. Yeah, and also I'm not able to look at the tape of when you had it, of course. So who knows? Maybe you've seen something that you liked. I would keep on watch, but enter slow. Yeah, I mean it just hasn't presented anything for me. And obviously this is a clear level. If this is some sort of retracement to the downside, I would expect, if you did get an entry on that breakout, I'm definitely going to respect these retracement levels. So, I mean, let's say somebody was looking to take this breakout, or let's say I take this 750 break tomorrow, I'm definitely going to be respecting these areas up in here. And if it wants to give me another move to the upside, hold a piece for the dream. That's what I say. Hold a piece for the dream. But I do gotta get going, Hal. I gotta get this dog some food, and uh, I will be in touch with you tomorrow. So thanks for tuning in, and I'm out of here. Catch you later.